Good morning, everybody. We are live on Rumble Studio. YouTube still doesn't have their shit together, so we are still live on YouTube, but we're doing it through Rumble Studio. So shout out to Rumble Studio. Good morning, Rumble. Good morning, YouTube. Yes, we're active on YouTube. We're live on X. Good morning, X. Let me check that we're live on X. I know we're live on X, but I'm gonna check anyway. So on X. Yes, it is showing that I am live, and it says there's 4 people watching on X. I can only see this if I actually go on X. I can't see it on Rumble Studio. So shout out to the people on X looking at this. We are live on LinkedIn. I did just check that. We are good on LinkedIn. We are live on Instagram. Good morning. We're live on TikTok. Tell me your locations as you are checking in. Tell me locations as you are checking in on at least the ones where I can see the locations. I can't see the comments everywhere. And while I'm waiting for that, tell you all the topic here today. We're going to talk about them shutting down Job Corps. Now, some of you may be products of Job Corps, veterans. I am not. And I've heard of Job Corps. But we're going to talk about the shutdown that they're doing of it and the bigger picture of why it matters, because it's not really about Job Corps. Some of you already have a job. Many of you already have a career that you are pretty much staying in. So you don't even need Job Corps. So why is this even a topic? I'm going to tell you why. We're going to get into that in a moment. Let me just make sure everything is working the way it's supposed to be. Rumble, YouTube, X, yes. Facebook, yes. LinkedIn, yes. Instagram, yes. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Shout out to Tuscaloosa. Let's see what we got going on TikTok. Good morning, those of you over there on TikTok. Over here on TikTok, Irma V, thank you for the good morning. I never saw that one before. I don't think I have. Let's see. Traditional all day. Good morning. Dwayne checking in from Detroit. Good morning. Marky Man, good morning. Nikki, good morning. Carrie, go get 'em. Good morning. North Carolina in the building. South Texas, Detroit, Charleston, South Carolina. Good morning from Michigan. Sherry, 1967. Shout out to Michigan. I have family in Michigan. Courtney, good morning to you. Indiana homegirls, good morning. Connecticut is in the building. By the way, the book of the day, I should have changed this one. I should have told you about a different book, but I forgot. But anyway, book of the day is the third day. This book right here, this red book you see behind my shoulder, How to Separate Yourself. The pros separate themselves from the amateurs by the way you show up every single day and deliver. You get a free copy of that book. Just cover the shipping by going to thirddaybook.com. As you can see right there, third day and the word book.com. That's where you get a copy of that book. You also go to the link in my profile on TikTok. That'll take you to workonyourgame.live. We got everything work on your game base. You can get there the links to everything I'm going to talk about here today, or anything else that I've mentioned that I have not yet mentioned, is right here at workonyourgame.live, as you all can see. And also, what was the other thing I was going to say? There's one more thing that just slipped my mind what I was going to say. Oh yeah, get on my email list completely for free right there on that same place, workonyourgame.live. I send emails out every day. I just sent one out about 30 minutes ago. So if you weren't on my email list yet, you missed that one. But you can get the next one because I'm going to send another one out later on today. I send emails pretty often. So if you're on my email list, you're going to have me in your inbox a lot. So those of you who like to read, you should like to read because I write. You get on my email list for free. Just go to workonyourgame.live. You also go to workonmygame.com. So anything work on your game, we got it. And if we don't have it, we're about to get it. So let's get into this topic here today, which is the Job Corps shutdown. Mila said, New Jersey, my son is at Casadaga Job Corps. Is that in New Jersey? I never heard of that place, Casadaga. But that's what we're going to talk about here today. So let me tell y'all what the context of this is, and then let's get into the conversation. So the U.S. Department of Labor, they just announced recently that all contractor-operated Job Corps centers, and now contractor operated, so not all of them are contractor operated, but the ones that are, these Job Corps centers will shut down permanently by June 30th of this year, which is today's the 13th. So literally 17 days from now, all Job Corps that are contractor operated are going to be shut down. So Mila over there, Milala on Instagram, is your son, is that a contractor operated Job Corps or is it a different type? If it's a different type, what type is it? And is your son, does he have to come home? You got to leave? What's he doing if he's in Job Corps right now? So any contractor operated Job Corps is going to be shut down by June 30th, literally less than 3 weeks from now. Now let's talk about what Job Corps actually is. Because again, I heard of it, but I never paid much attention to it because I never seriously considered it myself. Didn't even know what it really was. But here's what Job Corps is. It was launched in 1964. So Job Corps, by the way, we just talked about this a lot yesterday. 1964. Anytime you hear a program was launched by the government, anytime in the 1960s, usually it was a response to or it was an add-on to the civil rights movement from the United States government, usually orchestrated by President Lyndon Baines Johnson. He was the guy who succeeded JFK after JFK lost his life. And the Job Corps was launched in 1964, part of LBJ's War on Poverty. So LBJ launched a war on poverty. Here's the thing you should know about the United States government while we're talking about it. Anytime the United States government launches a war on anything that is not another country, it usually loses. So we win. Usually America wins all our wars on things on other countries. Anytime we go on a war with other countries, pretty much we've won. Or at least we survived to tell the story. And militaristically, we're pretty tough. But all the other wars, we don't win. The war on pharmaceuticals, we lost. I remember that one in the 1980s. I got to be careful what words I say on TikTok. We didn't win that war. The war on poverty, we didn't win. So this didn't work either. So LBJ launched the war on poverty. So if y'all thought these wars that the government throws out there are new ideas, they're not. They've been around for a long time. And someone said the AFG country, we didn't win that one. I mean, we have more we didn't win in terms of how it ended up looking historically. Like the story of it, no, we didn't win. But when you talk about the pitched battles on the field, on the battlefield, we won. Same way in Vietnam. On the battlefield, we won. But did we actually win the headlines? No, we didn't. We did not win the press conference. So I get what you're saying. Well, that was the war on poverty launched 60 years ago. We're still losing. And this program provides, this is what Job Corps does. So, Milala, so we have a person with some real life experience here. Her son is in Job Corps. She said they're supposed to get sent home yesterday, but because of the extension due to the Department of Labor having to go to court on the 17th. So the Department of Labor is going to court on the 17th, which is Tuesday. Is that right? Tuesday, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, Tuesday. So it got an extension. So often when the government announces stuff like this, then somebody will either go to court or the government will say, all right, we'll give you a little bit more time to get it right, whatever the problem is. And then they have an extension, the same way that they were talking about banning TikTok in January. And now here we are, June, and we still got TikTok. And it hasn't been sold to anybody, at least not yet. We may talk about that again soon if it becomes a story again. So what Job Corps does, it provides free vocational training, education, housing, and meals to low-income youth ages 16 to 24. So that's who Job Corps is for. And before I was looking into this, I didn't even know exactly what Job Corps was for. I knew it was like a place you went away to, similar to a college, and it provides a whole lot of stuff to get you ready for a job. But I didn't know exactly what it offered. So again, free vocational training. In other words, it gets you ready to get an actual job. So it's not like college where they just teach you a bunch of random information, then give you a diploma or a degree and say, wow, you're educated. And then you go out into the world and you're like, all right, what the hell am I supposed to do now? I don't know how to do anything. I just sat in class for 4 years. Job Corps is different, where they actually teach you how to do a job. Novel idea. How about we just show people how to do an actual job rather than just giving a bunch of random information and hoping that they can figure something out, which is what college does. Job Corps does something different, and Job Corps is run by the government. So just interesting thing to think about. Free training, education, and they house you. So it's similar to a college, let's just say, and they give you food. This is a pretty good setup. I mean, from the outside looking in. But it's for income ages 16 to 24, and you have to be low income. So basically, you got to prove hardship in order to get into something like Job Corps. So you silver spoon kids or silver spoon parents, your kids can't go to Job Corps because you ain't broke enough. All right, so the program has served roughly 50,000 students every year. Okay, so it's not that big. I mean, some colleges have 50,000 students by themselves. Job Corps itself serves 50,000 students total per year, many of whom had no other safety net. So in other words, kids who they don't really have another opportunity to do anything in life other than being a rapper or an athlete or a pharmaceuticals dealer in the street, they go to Job Corps. So usually these are kids who come from somewhat stable backgrounds, just they don't have as much resources, but they do have some responsible adults or adults around them who say, okay, you're probably not going to be a rapper. You're probably not going to be an athlete, and you're not going to be in the streets. So how about you go to Job Corps so you can give yourself a chance at life? You got the military, and Job Corps is another opportunity that people have. So this is a good safety net type of program based on what we've talked about so far. Many of whom, again, didn't have other opportunities. But after a recent internal review, and who knows who did that? Government's very big. Let's not blame it on Elon Musk. I doubt it. The Department of Labor cited underperformance rising costs, and safety concerns as the reasons for the closure. We're going to get into all of that here today. And by the way, I will respond to questions and comments at the end. Let me just get through this content. So underperformance. So they say Job Corps is not performing. Remember, we're in a performance-based business, folks. So they shut it down because it's not performing, allegedly. Costs are too high, and safety concerns as the reason for the closure. Now, they report, this is what they said. Only 38% of students who go into Job Corps actually graduate from Job Corps. 38%. So if 100 kids go in, only 38 graduate. That's interesting. If you're giving them free education, free training, free housing, why are people not graduating? It's a question that needs to be answered. And they say the average yearly income for people who graduate, meaning after they graduate, is how much money they make. Anybody want to guess? Average yearly income for a student who graduates from Job Corps. Let's get some guesses. Average yearly income when you graduate from Job Corps. This is for kids ages 16 to 24 from low income backgrounds. What's the average amount of money they make after they graduate? Give me some numbers. And I need a yearly number. Give me a yearly number. I need a yearly dollar amount. So Mr. Ohio J says 35,000. Marky Man says 30,000. Wendy says 20,000. Tony says 40,000. Give y'all a little anecdote. I'm getting a bunch of 30s and 40s from a bunch of people. 45, 25, 45, 25, 40,000, 22,000. Well, Molly said 100K. Yeah, right, Molly. Keep dreaming. All right, go back to sleep. You need somebody getting out of Job Corps making $100,000. And I hate to disappoint all of you. You all got it wrong. You all overestimated. The yearly income for graduates of Job Corps is $16,695. $16,695. This is their own internal review. $16,000. So none of you got it right, even though you said 20,000 was too much. $16,000. That's crazy. All right. Now you want to talk about poverty. All right. So again, think about this. LBJ launched Job Corps as part of the war on poverty. 60 years later, the average person graduating from Job Corps is making $16,000 a year. So clearly we lost the war on poverty. That's $16,000. Now, here's what the government is also spending. Now we got to compare it to this number. Think about this. The average amount of money that the government spends on a graduate. Let's guess that. To run the program. What's the average amount of money the government spends on you to go through the Job Corps program? Let's get some guesses on that. So basically how much the government is investing. So this is basically like instead of you going to college, the government's going to invest in you because this is no cost for you to go. How much is the government spending per person to send you through this program to get a job making $16K a year? Give me the number. How much the government spends on you for the entire program. Let's get some numbers here. So all right, now we're getting some 40K, 100K, 50K. Mr. Holiday said cashiers make more than that at the grocery stores. That's right. Everybody makes more than that if you got a full-time job. I don't think you can make that much at a full-time job. I don't think it's even possible. Molly said 200K. Marky said 50K. Reno said, I don't think it's accurate. Even at minimum wage, most states you would make more than that. Well, this is what it says. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're not working full time. It doesn't say full time. It just says this is how much they're making. So maybe they're not working. Unearthly says 60. I got 80. Wendy said $1.5 million. If they spending $1.5 million, I need to get in the Job Corps. Shit, give me the 1.5. Nikki says 30. Tony 100. 50. 22. 15. 30. Okay, so Sean said 200. User said 180K. Rebel 179. Okay, so on the first number, many of you shot too high. On this one, y'all shot too low. The amount they spend per graduate is $155,000 to run the program. So the government is spending $155,000 to send you through Job Corps, and then you're getting a job that makes you $16,000 a year. Now, again, it depends on how they're parsing the data. This is probably not including every student who's working full time, because if you're working full time, as some of you said in the comments, it's impossible to make $16,000 a year working full time, even if you're making minimum wage. Let's do the math. What's the minimum wage? The least that anybody can make at a job, let's just say, is $12 an hour. You work $12. You're working for $12 an hour times 40 hours a week. That's $480 a week. My math is right here. I'm using a calculator, so it has to be right. And then let's say you work, let's just say 48 weeks a year. You get a couple weeks off. You make $23,000, even if you make $12 an hour full time. So how are you making 16? And so some of you say you don't think that's accurate. Like, it's damn near impossible. Well, again, let's remember, What they're not telling you in this data is that not everybody's working full time. Just because you went through Job Corps does not mean you have a full-time job, nor does it mean that you're working 40 hours a week. So the people who get out, they're making 16K, which means these mofos is lazy. Even after they went through Job Corps, they're not even working full time. They went and got a job. And again, what are you going to Job Corps for if you're only going to make $16,000 a year? What was the point of Job Corps? I mean, it's like, what's the point of going to college? You're going to get a minimum wage job. So this is the reason why Job Corps is getting shut down, because on their own internal review, it ain't doing shit. It ain't helping people out. Now, add to that, we're not done. Someone said the minimum wage is, so the national minimum wage is $7.25. Okay. And Indiana, they say $7.50. Really, there are people making $7.50. Ohio J said in Ohio, the minimum wage is $10. And Joshua said 16K annual is only $7.69. That's assuming they're working full time. I don't think all these people are working full time. That's what it seems like to me. King's Treasure said minimum wage is $7.25. The minimum wage is $7.25. I thought it was more than that. Wow. That's a very low amount of money. I understand why people are mad about the minimum wage thing. I'm sure we'll talk about that more when we get into the comments. However, the whole point of Job Corps, similar to college, in a similar vein, is that you're going there to get training that puts you above the minimum wage. So Job Corps, at least, is being honest on some level, saying, all right, we're sending people through this program and they're still not making much money. Clearly, this program ain't working. And now we're going to shut it down. So, I mean, I think we got to tip our hat to the government. At least they're pointing out their bullshit on this one so far, but we're not done. We got to get further into this. Let's get into more context. So average student graduates make 16K a year. So that means some are making nothing, because some of them, look, you got to remember when people give you data. There's a book out there called How to Lie with Statistics. I'm not saying that these stats are lying. I'm the one giving them to you after all. However, you got to understand when data is parsed, you have to ask questions about data. So if the average student makes 16,000, you got to understand there are some out there making 60, and there's some out there making 0 because they didn't go get a job. Maybe they decided they want to go sell pharmaceuticals in the street, even though they went to Job Corps. Or they went and got arrested and now they can't get a job anywhere. Or they just decided to not use the skills they got at Job Corps and went and tried to become a rapper or an Instagrammer. So they are not even making any money. So they're bringing the average down, and there are others who are bringing the average up. This is just the average number. Now, you have to parse this data and say, okay, what's the average for people who work full time who got out of Job Corps? Let's see if we can figure that out. I mean, we got a lot of information access these days. What is the average income for someone who went through the Job Corps program, graduated, and is working full time? I'm seeing that the average for everyone is $16,000 a year, but what's the average for people who have a full-time employment and are working full-time after graduation? So let's see if we can find out some better information, because again, these are questions you got to ask whenever someone gives you any kind of stat or any kind of data. It's very easy to mislead people with data if they don't ask the right questions. So here's what they said. They, meaning ChatGPT. It says individuals who graduate from Job Corps and have full-time employment, the most reliable data comes from the Department of Labor's outcomes reporting. They say the median earnings, that means in the middle, in the second quarter after separation, i.e. the first full quarter working, so a quarter of a year. So you got to multiply this number by 4 because it's a quarter. $4,763. So that actually kind of checks out. It comes out to roughly $19,000 a year. So this is I'm fact checking my own numbers. Comes out to $19K a year. So let's just raise it by $3,000. I'm not sure it makes much of a difference. Meanwhile, the average annual earnings across all graduates, including full-time, part-time, and unemployed, has been consistently reported at that $16,000 number. So this Job Corps is just a failing program. I think we just have to accept that. Job Corps is a failing program. What this reveals is that the average for everyone who went to Job Corps is $16,700 a year. If you got a full-time job, the average income is $19,000 a year. So all of you, the lowest number I saw any of you say was 20K. So even full-time, 19K is the most anybody's making. That's crazy. That's crazy. Now, again, they say that the broader number is diluted, as I just explained to you, but even full-time, that number is still crazy. It doesn't make much sense. Now, they say the middle earners is around that 19,000. So there are some who are making more and there are some who are making less. That's what the median means. And earnings can rise after initial placement, especially with career progression. So this is what you earn when you first get out of Job Corps. Okay, so if somebody got out of Job Corps and they were 24 and now they're 44, they might be making a lot more money now at 44 than they were at 24. But just as an initial job, somebody coming out of college these days, anybody have an idea of how much money somebody getting out of college today, like what's the average amount of money somebody's making? or Job Corps? Let me ask that question while I wait for any of you to answer. Any of you got college age kids or something like that, or you know kids in that space? What's the average income for people who have full-time employment graduating from college these days? Now, this number can be all over the place because there's so many people graduating from college. So some are saying about 45. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of 40s. So somewhere around that 30 to $40,000 range. So this is government data. What they say is full-time earnings, bachelor degree holders working full-time, Q1 2025, $1,700 a week. I was about to say, what? $1,700 a quarter? That makes okay. So they say, this is what this data says. I'm not sure this is true. They said the median full-time earnings Q1 2025 comes out to $91,000 a year. That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't pass the smell test. Graduating from college and making $91,000 a year? Oh, they're talking about everybody. I'm talking about people who just got out. See, this is why you got to ask the right questions when you're dealing with this data. So projected starting salaries. Let's look at that. Starting salaries for people graduating college today. Average anticipated starting salary is $68,000. Does that sound right to y'all? Give me a yes or no. Any of you who are in the college range or you work with people in the college range? I don't talk to a lot of people in that age bracket, like early 20s right now. Does that sound right? $68,000 as a starting salary? This is coming from bankrate.com. Some say yes, and I'm seeing a bunch of people say no. It said depends on the degree. That's actually correct, what Daniel's saying is. But they're saying the average, this is across everybody, average. Now, somebody getting out of college, are so many of them making so much that they're pulling that number up that high, 68,000 out of college? Now, they say fields like engineering and computer science are starting closer to 75 to 78,000. That 68 number seems high to me. That seems kind of high. ZipRecruiter says, now, according to a job site, I think they might have better information. ZipRecruiter sounds more like what all of you said. So Tigger said, my son graduated $60K. What kind of work is he doing? Bad Boy said, how much you pay for a degree? Yeah, a lot more than that. Yeah, it depends on what kind of work you're doing. If you're doing tech-based work, then, of course, the number is going to be higher. So, Tigger, you said 60K. What's your son doing? Jackie said it took me 15 years as a nurse to make that much money. Yeah, so it very much depends on the job. Here's what ZipRecruiter says. ZipRecruiter sounds more like what you all said. 44,000 a year, the typical range anywhere between 35 and 60. That sounds about right. Average is about 44,000 coming out of college today. That sounds a little bit more like what I would expect. And again, this is all full-time roles. So you got to take all this data with a grain of salt, and you got to ask more specific questions to get more specific answers. So again, they say starting graduates, depending on major, could be between 55 and 78. That still sounds high. But if you're in tech, engineering, and business, those are typically higher, especially tech and engineering these days. Engineering is a safe degree. You get an engineering degree, you'll always have a job, and you'll make pretty good money. We got any engineers in the room? You got any engineer degree holders in the room? Angie said, why come out in poverty? Good morning, Angie. Good to see you. Well, that's the reason why they're shutting down Job Corps, Angie. That's the very point. So, I mean, this is actually, it looks like we got to give the government credit. At least they got something right here. O-Dog said, minimum wages for teenagers without bills. Grown-ass adults shouldn't be concerned with minimum wages. Really should be abolished. Yeah, well, it will be abolished if they keep raising it, because then people with no skills ain't going to make any money. They won't have a job. So, let's see. I'm just looking at this. Full-time bachelor degree holders in general median. Again, this includes mid-career professionals. So when I said that 90K number, that was based on people who had been working. They just have a degree. They're not talking about just people who just graduated. That makes a lot more sense. But job boards are saying they're cutting that number in half, 44K. So I would go with the job boards because they're the ones who see the hiring. I think colleges may lie and make these numbers seem higher than they are so they can bring more people to college. Overall, full-time bachelor degree holders, they say the median earnings is $91,000 a year. That still does not sound right to me. Does that sound right to y'all? They say people who have a full-time bachelor's degree, that's a 4-year degree, right? Is that the bachelor's? I have a 4-year degree. I don't even know what it's called. I'm thinking that's it, right? Is that a bachelor's degree, 4-year degree? They say that people with 4-year degrees amongst everybody, no matter when you graduated, that the median earnings in the middle is $91,000 a year. Does that sound right? I still don't think that sounds right. But maybe I'm wrong. Not everybody has a degree, but I guess if you go with all the people with degrees, I guess it makes sense. I don't know. The number still feels a little bit high to me. And Dornisha says, depends on the demographic. Yeah, it depends on the demographic. You really have to parse this data a lot just to to make sense of it. These numbers can be highly skewed when you throw everybody into an average. You really got to look at the details. So anyway, let me go back to what we're talking about here. I'm giving y'all the context of Job Corps because we're talking about why Job Corps shut itself down. Basically, the Department of Labor is shutting it down. So back to the context and numbers. Average graduate from Job Corps is making $16,695 a year, which is nothing. You can't even be poor with $16,000 a year. And the government is spending $155,000 per graduate. So what is that? 16,000 to 155,000. Let's just use my trusty calculator here. 155,000 divided by 16.7 thousand. 16 delete 16. Let's just call it 16,000. That's almost a 10x negative ROI. What do you call it? See, if I invested 16,000 and made 155, that's a 10x return. But what do you call it when it's the opposite? What's the term for that? Is there a word for that? When your ROI is negative? What do you call it when the ROI is going backwards? In other words, you invest 155,000 but only make 16,000 back. What is the term for that when you're going in the opposite direction? There has to be a term for that. Whatever that is, that's what this is called. And Job Corps is called, so they just call it a negative return on investment. Okay, so it's just the same thing. Negative ROI or an underwater investment. So Job Corps has drowned because it is underwater. Bad investment. They call that a failed business. Exactly. So this is why Job Corps is shutting down. Now, again, we got to give the government credit. They looked at one of their programs and it's not working. And they put up the data. They put their own data out and they said, this ain't working. We shutting it down. I mean, we got to give the government, we got to tip our hat to the government here, at least on some level. Add that to the nearly, here's what they say. Everybody's just saying this all so well. And this has been going on since 1964, by the way, folks. This program has been going on for 60 years. So let's put this in the proper context. LBJ started this program 60 years ago as a war on poverty, a war we have lost. They're graduating people after spending $155K on them. They're graduating people to make $16K. And just now in 2025, they're realizing we got to shut this down. So how long has the government been losing money on this program? 60 fucking years. And now they're fixing it. So when I tell you that the government moves slowly, this is what I'm talking about. It took them 60 years to figure this out and shut it down. 60 years of losing money. Imagine what they could have did with that money for the last 60 years. This is how the government works, y'all. So any of you ever get annoyed or frustrated with how the government is doing things, don't be, because you should understand that this is normal procedure for the United States government. Them shutting it down is the thing you should be surprised by. But this is going on in all areas of government all the time. So continuing, add that to the nearly 15,000 serious incident reports in 2023 alone. Many involving fights, assaults, and other major safety breaches. So basically, you take a whole bunch of people who don't have many prospects in life, you throw them into a place together and try to put them in basically a school to teach them a trade, and they end up beating each other up and fighting against each other and socking up and stabbing up each other. That's what happens in Job Corps. So it's kind of like a couple levels above jail. This sounds what Job Corps is sounding like. I'm kind of being hyperbolic, but I'm kind of not. You take a bunch of people from low-income backgrounds, so there's got to be low income to get into Job Corps, and you put a whole bunch of low-income people together and house them in a dorm, and you're supposed to be sending them to school. It's kind of like taking one of the worst schools in the town and just putting it in a program and saying, instead of teaching you how to read and write, we're going to teach you how to do a job. What do you think is going to happen in that school? It's going to be like one of those movies where all the kids are beating each other up, like Coach Carter or what's the name of that movie with the white woman and she was working in the school in like South Central and Coolio, that Coolio song. Gangsta's Paradise was like the soundtrack to the movie. What was the name of that movie? Was it Dangerous Minds? Y'all remember that movie? I think it was Dangerous Minds. Yeah, it's like Dangerous Minds. You putting a bunch of low-income people together in one place and saying, we're going to take you to school. What the hell you think is going to happen? So 15,000. Again, Job Corps ain't that big. Let's go. Job Corps, check this out. Job Corps has 50,000 students a year. Are y'all listening? Understand these numbers. 50,000 students a year, but in 1 year, they have 15,000 serious incident reports. How you have 15,000 serious incidents amongst 50,000 students? That means like every third student is getting into a serious incident. Do you want to go to Job Corps? I'm good on Job Corps. All right, So not only are you not learning anything, not only are you not going to make any money, you also might get beat up. All right, so this is what happens when you go to Job Corps. This is not looking good. Again, at least the government pointed this shit out. Nobody else had to point it out. So fights, assaults, and other major safety breaches. Critics say the shutdown. Here's what the critics say. So some people are mad the Job Corps is being shut down, despite everything that we talked about so far. Critics say that the shutdown disproportionately impacts vulnerable youth, and many question whether this is a reform move or just an abandonment of the underserved. So is this a smart reallocation of government dollars or a mistake that will hurt people who needed this the most? This has been, this right here, what I just said, this has been the common refrain of, I guess we can just say, people on the political left for the last 60 years, is that it is clear that this program is not working. You're not making any money. The government is spending way too much for no return. And there are security breaches. People are getting beat up and fighting and assaulting each other inside of it because you're putting all these low-income people with no futures all in the same place. Of course, that's what's going to happen. And it's basically jail without the bars. And they ain't learning shit. And now people are like, why are you shutting this down? You're not helping the underserved anymore. You're leaving them with no options. Mofo, they already don't have any options. Look at this option. And this is what the political left keeps doing. They've been doing this for 60 years. They spin the wheels. So there's a program out that's supposed to help. Starts with positive intentions. Again, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt. The LBJ have positive intentions with Job Corps. Job Corps sounds like a good idea. I mean, on the surface, it sounds like a good idea. Let's take a bunch of people who are low income and they don't see a bright future for themselves. Let's put them in a program where we can show them how to create a future. Let's teach them how to do a job. So now you can go get a job. Now you can go be an electrician. You can go be a plumber. You can go be an auto detailer. You can go be a mechanic. You can go be a whatever. Person who fixes windows, whatever. You can go get a job doing some kind of trade, working with your hands. That's a good idea. And so we're giving them benefit of the doubt, but the idea clearly is not working. And here's the reason why this doesn't work. Let's talk about this, because the government has a lot of good ideas that end up not working. Why do they not work? One of the reasons that they don't work is because it's in the public sector. When you put things in the public sector, you introduce bureaucracy and politics. And when you introduce bureaucracy and politics into any entity, you get a whole bunch of bullshit, a whole bunch of red tape, and a whole bunch of nonsense that has nothing to do with actually achieving the goal. Any of you who works in corporate America, any of you who works in the government, any of you who works in academia, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Put yes in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. If you work in one of those places, you know that there's a certain thing that you're supposed to be doing, that on the brochure it says this is what we do. But then when you get in there and start actually working, you find out you can't even do the shit that you're supposed to be doing because it's all this red tape you got to go through to get anything done. You can't get anything done because it's all this bureaucracy. And the government is the biggest bureaucracy in the world. That's why they can't do this thing that looks like a really good idea. So you see all the yeses in the comments. So all you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't do these things in a bureaucratic environment because you got to go through all these checks and balances to do anything, even the stuff that you want to do that is a good idea and people agree is a good idea. As soon as you start trying to do it, you run into like all these regulations and rules and you can't do all this shit. And you need approvals from 10 people and you can't even get these mofos on the phone. And then a year goes by, you got nothing done and you can't even help the people who you want to help. And you feel like a piece of shit because you had this great idea that you wanted to do. And all these people want it from you, but your hands are tied behind your back because working in a bureaucratic environment, there's only so much you can do on your own volition. And people on the outside looking in don't understand this. So then they're looking at you thinking something's wrong with you when the problem is the system is blocking you from doing what you want to do. And there's only so much you can explain that to them. It just sounds like you're making an excuse. So when people get mad at politicians, they got the same problems. They don't act like they have the same problems because if they said that, they would look feckless and unable to make impacts and they get voted out. So they can't admit this, but every politician understands this. They deal with the same problems that y'all deal with. They need to get these things done. They can't do it. They got to go through this person, that person, the third person. They're a Democrat. The other person's Republican. So they're not going to help each other. And they're going to block you just because you're on the wrong side of the political aisle. So now nothing gets done. Nobody gets helped. And everybody's mad at the government. The citizens were mad at the government, or the president didn't do this. The senator didn't do this. The congressperson didn't do that. They got the same problem. This is my problem with bureaucracies. This is the reason why I don't like bureaucratic organizations. I don't really like working with corporate. I don't like working with the government. I don't like academia because the actual substance and people who have real substance and really good ideas and things that would actually work can never actually get through to do those things. And this is why people who have real substance usually at some point end up leaving these places and going independent, going into the private sector. Private sector is like entrepreneurship in places where you can have an idea at 8 o'clock and it's executed by 3 o'clock. That's the private sector. I like working with people in the private sector. Most of my coaching clients, consulting clients are private sector businesses. Actually, all of them are private sector businesses because I don't fuck with these bureaucracies. I'm not waiting 3 months to get my money. I'm not waiting for you to talk to 6 people so you get approval so I can get a payment. I'm not doing that shit. I don't like doing that. I don't like waiting. I hate red tape. And I hate having to go through somebody who doesn't even have any skill who gets to approve whether I need to do what I want to do. And you don't even know shit. You just had the job longer than me and you got a degree that has nothing to do with the job. But all of a sudden you have seniority and authority and I'm supposed to listen to you just because of your job title versus my job title when you have no skill and I got 10 times more ability than you have, but I got to listen to you because you're the boss. That's bullshit. I don't understand how any of you can work in these places. You are better than me. I can't do it. But have I described some of you's jobs? Oh, like the live, please, folks. I forgot to tell y'all to like the live. Please like the live on TikTok. Let's get up to 40,000 likes here today. I can't do this. I'm a private sector person. I like to work with decision makers and I like to talk to the person who can write the check. And okay, I'm talking to you and I'll talk to one other person. I won't talk to nobody else. I want 3 people CC'd on my emails. I don't do that shit. When I wrote one of my books, like this book right here, Work on Your Game, I wrote this book through a traditional publisher. And y'all don't know what that means. Traditional publisher equals corporate. That's what that means. When you ever hear the word traditional, usually means corporate in the business sense. So this book came out amazing. This is an amazing book. And everything in that book, word for word, came out exactly as it should. And that's because the editor, the woman who initially found me to write the book, she is very good. She's very good at her job. And if she asked me, she didn't ask me, but if she did ask me, I would tell her she should go independent and just be an editor and just run your own business, just editing people's books because she is really good. My book came out as good as it did. Of course, I wrote a whole bunch of great stuff, but she edited the book to make it really, really good. So I wrote I think I was contracted for 250,000 words. I wrote 500,000 words and I gave her the whole thing and she just cut it down until we got to 250 and the book came out how it came out. So I love the book. The problem was, I remember I signed the publishing deal. I think I met her in May of some year. I was speaking at some event. I met her at the event. I met her in May. I signed the publishing contract in July. So it took 2 months to sign the contract. Shouldn't have took that long. We could have did it in 2 hours. It took 2 months. Because you got to go, she had to go through. I talked to her. She said, okay, I got to go to these people. So she went through all the shit she had to go through, all the red tape. She finally comes back to me. We're going back and forth on the contract. We finally get the contract done. That took 2 months. And then they're like, all right, you got 6 months or 12 months to write the manuscript and send it to them. 6 months. How does it take 6 months to write it? It does not take 6 months to write a book. Any of you want to write a book, it takes 6 weeks if you're slow to write a book. I wrote the book in 3 weeks. So I wrote 500,000 words or whatever I had, 300,000. I think I was contracted for 150,000. I wrote 300,000, something like that. And that's how they do books, by the way. When you sign a publishing contract, you're contracted for a certain number of words because they want the book to be a certain length. So this book, Work on Your Game, how many pages is this? So you see this, ain't no pictures in this book. So this book came out to, just to show y'all, 235 pages. So I forget how many words it ended up being. But anyway, this is a great book. If you haven't read this, get this. And I think I had 6 months or 12 months. I don't remember how long it was to write the whole book. I wrote the manuscript in 3 weeks. I sent her the whole manuscript. She's like, you need to do some more editing because you would be putting too much editing work on me. So I edited some more, went to another person who was an editor, had them do some editing, sent it back and forth. And this was when did I write this book? Publishing deal was signed 2017. Book didn't come out until 2019. Now, why did it take that long? It took that long because of their fucking red tape. So she had to go to the marketing department, the sales department. She had a boss. Her boss had a boss. And they had to have meetings and these committees and all of this shit. It took 2 years to get this book up. When I write books, that shit takes months, not years. This book right here, Sales Discipline System. I did a presentation in December of last year on Zoom to an insurance company. And I was basically teaching them, it was an hour-long presentation. I was teaching them stuff about how to step their discipline game up in sales. And if you know anything about insurance, it's the product is the product. It's just you got to follow the process. You follow the process with following up and talking to your customers and responding to objections, et cetera, you sell it. So they said, we need somebody to just teach our salespeople, just follow the damn system, we'll make sales. So I did a whole presentation on it. The people who hired me said, Dre, do you have a book on this? Because it's really good stuff. I said, I don't yet, but I will. I reached out to them in January of this year and said, give me the recording of that presentation I did. They sent me the recording. I got the recording transcribed. We edited that thing up, and within 6 weeks, this book existed. That's how fast you can write a book. Now, and I didn't even have to write that. All I did was take the stuff I already said and edit it. I'm telling you all that to tell you this. When I went through corporate, this shit took literally 2 years. This is a good book, but it took 2 years. When I did it myself, it took 2 months. That's the difference between the private sector and the public sector. And I like speed. Speed is very important for success in life. And in the bureaucratic space, everything is slow. And it's always somebody you got to go through. And often you got to go through people who ain't shit, but they just have a job title. Now, any of you work with anybody who fits that description? I'm not even going to ask you to say yes. Don't out yourself here. So first of all, we got to give credit to the government for at least shutting down something that clearly was not working. Can we get the 50,000 likes over on TikTok, please? And the political left saying that this is leaving underserved people in the lurch. They are already in the lurch. They're already in the lurch. All right, they're already in a quote unquote underserved position. They already are low income. They already don't see opportunities for themselves, and the government is doing it. I brought up the public sector and the private sector for a reason. This is what I said all that to say, is that when you privatize things, they tend to do better. The private sector tends to outperform the public sector for one specific reason, because in the private sector, everything is based on performance and results. In the public sector, everything is based on politics and optics. That's the difference. So any of you who works in the public sector, and again, public can mean government, academia, corporate America. These are the biggest bureaucracies in America. These three things right here. These are not about the best. They're about politics and optics. Who does this please or piss off, and how does it look in the headlines? That's all they care about in bureaucratic organizations. They do not care about, do we have the best performers, the best products, the best services, produce the best outcomes? In the private sector, you must do that, because if you don't, two things are going to happen. If you don't produce the best in the private sector, number one, you're not going to have any customers or clients because nobody will buy your shit because it's not good enough. And number two, your competitors are going to eat you alive. And number three, actually three things happen. You go out of business. In the private sector, you must perform. And that's why I like the private sector. That's the reason why I tell you performance and results-based business, because you must perform in this realm. If you don't perform, you lose. In the public sector, you can underperform and still keep your job for 20 years. How many of you know somebody at the place that you work, if you work in a bureaucratic organization, and a person is garbage, yet they keep their job and they're never going to get fired by your estimation? Put yes if you know anybody who fits that description. In the corporate world, this happens all the time. There are people with no skills, no game, don't do much, not performing, working in the corporate world, and they get a job, they get to keep their job, and the government is the same thing. In the corporate world, they say, so see a bunch of you saying yes, so y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't even work in that space, but I know, because I've done enough work in these spaces, I know exactly how it goes. That in the corporate world, they say you get promoted up to your level of incompetence. What that means is, let's say there are 5 levels in your organization. You start at level 1, you get promoted up to level 3, and you suck as a manager at level 3, but they won't fire you because they can't really fire you and you got contracts and all that. So basically you stay as a level 3 manager, even though you're trash. You're not going to move up to level 4 because you're trash, but you also are not going to get demoted or fired. So you just stay as a manager at level 3 and you work there until you retire. That's how it works. And why is this? Because again, in bureaucratic organizations, it is not about performance. It is about optics and politics. Because in a corporate space, especially a publicly traded company, it's just about the share price. And they don't care if they underperform as long as we're making money. And the people at the top are making money. That's all that matters. So the political left they want the public sector to solve these problems that should be privatized problems. Now, what is the trade-off of privatizing an issue is that the government can't tell you what to do. That's the reason why they don't privatize a lot of these things. A lot of stuff should be privatized. I would even prefer, they talked about this last year when they were talking about taking the USPS. Trump threatened it. He didn't really threaten it. Trump just throws shit out there just to get people reacting, in case any of you didn't know. And he was talking about maybe getting rid of the USPS. And then people were saying, no, that's wrong, because then you're going to get overcharged and then the mail won't get to these rural areas. I say that anything that the public sector is handling, if we privatized it or just allow competition, private competition, then the private sector would win most of the time. If you allow a company to have access to send mail the same way the USPS has access to mail, I'm not talking about just FedEx and UPS because they're a different class. But if there was a competitor, let's say Amazon competed with the USPS on sending mail, Amazon would win that competition. Why would Amazon win? Because Amazon is based in performance. They don't perform, they lose money, and they would shut it down if they weren't winning. They would win. USPS would easily lose that competition. Job Corps. What Job Corps needs to become is it needs to be a privatized situation. And the challenge with the privatized situation is how do you pay for it? Because if some company, Bill Gates, says, okay, I'll take over Job Corps, but I'm going to make it my company. It's going to be my private company. The government, y'all can just fund me. The problem is the government says, okay, Bill Gates, we'll give you the money to pay for the students and you can operate it the way you want to operate it. The problem is the government is not going to let him just do what he wants to do. They're going to start regulating and telling him what he can and can't do. You can't do this. You can do this. You can't say that. You can say this. And as soon as the government starts getting involved, they mess the whole thing up. And he can't do what he wants to do. And therefore, he's not going to take the job in the first place. This is the problem with the government is a whole lot of overreach, governmental overreach. Anytime they're giving money to a program or an idea that they're trying to solve a problem. Again, I believe they start with positive intentions. The problem is, I believe it was Ronald Reagan who said it, is the worst thing you could ever hear in your life is we're from the government and we're here to help, because the government is not good at this. Government has two jobs: protect my human rights and stay the hell out of my way. That's it. Government does not grant rights. The government protects rights. Protect my rights and stay out of my way. Anything else the government does, they're doing too much. Job Corps is an example of the government doing too much. We hit 53K. Thank you over there on TikTok. Can we get to 55, please? Job Corps was an example of this. The war on pharmaceuticals, drugs, was another example of this that didn't work. And cost per graduate, again, we already know that's unsustainable. People say the cost of doing nothing for these youth will be even higher over time. I say no, it's not. The cost of putting people in a worse situation is a negative cost. You're better off letting them figure it out on their own or let the private sector take over. I say let the private sector take over. Someone in the private sector can create. It's not like these don't already exist. They're just not universal worldwide to where everybody knows about them. But a program for some youth. Does any of you know about one? Let's say a program for someone between 16 and 24 that doesn't cost them any money out of pocket, but it trains them on a skill to where they can go and learn how to do things. As a matter of fact, it may not be no money out of pocket, but there's a guy who is banned on TikTok. I can't even say his name. His name is TATE. He has a program that last I checked, it was like $49 or $100 a month that is teaching people real life skills that they can use. And I've seen what it looks like on the inside, and it is teaching good stuff. And again, that's $49 a month or $100 a month, whatever the cost is. All right, that's nothing compared to $155,000 a year. And in the private sector, this is where it does best. And the reason why the private sector does better, because performance is a mandate. You don't perform, you make no money. No customers will buy your stuff. You ain't making any money. This is the reason why it can't be free, because you got to charge, because that gives you an incentive to be good, and also holds you accountable to your customers, because your customers will stop spending money if you are not giving them what they paid for. Whereas the government, if you're giving it for free, well, people don't value what they get for free. This is pretty much how it works. If you get something out for free, people don't value it. Why? Because they didn't invest. And what we say in the sales world, for those who don't know, is that when they pay attention. There's only so much you can give away for free. People aren't going to value it. At some point, you have to charge people to get in the room, because when they pay to get in the room, they'll pay attention to everything that happens in the room. If they get in the room for free, they can take it or leave it, because what did they lose? Other than their time, they didn't lose any money. They don't care. This is generally how it works. This is just human nature. So those incident reports that happen in Job Corps, we already talked about that. Some critics say that they are magnified due to the post-virus instability and understaffing is not proof of failure. I say that's nonsense. That's nonsense. And these are kind of excuses that people make, especially, again, I'm pointing at the political left here, because the political left has championed themselves they have positioned themselves as the champion of the underserved and the champion of the minority. They have pretty much failed at doing it, but they do call themselves this. And King Co over on Instagram said, we do pay for services with our taxes, LMAO. Okay, fair enough. I'm talking about a real cost that you can feel the money coming out of your account, which is different than taxes. Taxes, you don't feel that coming out of your account, because you never actually had, especially if you're an employee, you never touched the money. But when you're actually pulling money out of your wallet and giving it to somebody to get something, that's what I mean by paying. So technically you're correct, but the spirit of my point is different. So these students who are coming from extreme poverty, any income and structure is a major step forward that some people say that stats don't show. I disagree with that. I don't agree with that. putting them in a position to get any income when it's not even, again, you can't even be poor with $16,000 a year in most parts of America. Department of Labor says less than 40% of students are graduating, by the way. And the average graduate is not even making any meaningful economic move forward. They're in the same position they were in before. All you did was spend whatever number of years in Job Corps. What they gained? They didn't get anything from it. So can we get the 60K likes on TikTok? Thank you for liking the live. So the department says shutting down underperforming programs takes that funding and can reallocate it to more effective methods. That is correct. The problem is they're not going to do that. They're going to reallocate it, but is the method they send it to going to be more effective? Probably not. And y'all want to see an example of what happens when someone from the private sector goes into the public sector and tries to start fixing things? Look how they responded to Elon Musk. Y'all want to see what happens when a private sector individual, and look at Donald Trump. I mean, he's another example. He's not doing, I mean, he's the president, so it's a little bit different. But you want to see what happens when a private sector individual with private sector mentality goes into the public sector and starts tinkering. Look at what they did to Elon Musk. Look at how they reacted to him. Every single thing he did, he was doing something wrong. Oh, he's going to shut down this. He's going to take away this. He didn't find anything. He didn't do anything. He didn't achieve anything. He said he felt like there were threats on his life when he was working in Doge. Why? Because he was going to public sector people who are deeply entrenched in their careers. He was threatening their careers by saying, we're going to actually start holding this public sector entity to private sector accountability standards. And when he started doing that, look what they did. This is why the public sector is what it is. This is why the government is what it is. As soon as and people say, well, Elon didn't find anything. He didn't achieve anything. He didn't fix anything. Really? A guy who's worth $300 billion. I think he knows a few things about efficiency with money and running a business, running businesses, multiple businesses that have made a whole lot of money. You're telling me he spent 3 months looking through the government's books, as slow and as bureaucratic and as inefficient as they are. I just showed you $155K a student for students to make $16K a year. You're telling me Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, went in there and looked through their books for 90 days and he didn't find anything. Really? Really? I think you and I could go in there and look in the government's books and find something. All right. They got a program running for 60 years in which there's a 10x negative ROI. You're telling me Elon Musk couldn't find one discrepancy, one inefficiency. He didn't fix anything in 90 days. Really? That sounds really good. Sounds good. Doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense. He found a lot. The problem is everything he found was threatening somebody who's working in that public sector, firmly entrenched, and they don't even have to perform to get the money that they're making. And Elon said, okay, this person's not performing, but they're making money. Let's remove that. Let's remove that. Let's remove that. And all of a sudden, everybody mobilized to stop him from doing that. So what they did was come up with good sounding reasons to mask the real reasons that they were mad at Elon Musk. That's what actually happened. Anytime you hear somebody in the public sector, again, what I tell you the public sector is about, politics and optics. Who is this affecting and how does it look on TV? That's all they care about. Notice that performance is not on that list. When Elon Musk, with his performance mandate, came in there messing with people whose mandate is looking good and thinking about who it affects anytime I do something, all they did was come up with good sounding political and optical reasons to make Elon, with his performance mandate, look bad. They couldn't say, well, he's holding us to standards of performance, so we can't do that. They couldn't say that. That would sound crazy. All they said was, oh, he's going to get rid of Medicaid. He's going to get rid of SNAP. He's going to get rid of benefits. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's going to do all these terrible things. None of which actually happened, by the way. It's been 6 months. None of which actually happened. And they were able to stir up enough public outcry against him that people were really mad at Elon Musk and don't even know what was actually happening. All the people in the government know exactly what was happening. But again, they couldn't tell you that because they would look really bad if they told you what happened. Elon Musk tried to say what was happening. Here's what's actually happening. He said this in interviews, but Elon Musk is not very good Elon Musk is not good at winning the press conference. He's not that kind of person. Donald Trump is great at it. That's the reason why he's president. You got to be really good at winning the press conference to succeed in politics, in case any of you didn't know. That's how it works. One of the best skills you got to have in politics is winning the press conference. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means landing the one-liners and saying the things that gets the media to run with what you said, even if what you said is complete bullshit, even if it's based on complete falsehood. You can be directly lying to the people. But if you're able to persuade the media and the news to go along with what you said and able to get the people to go along with it, you succeed. That's what the government is all about. Winning press conferences. Think of all the politicians whose names you know, because a bunch of them we don't even know who they are, right? There are 500 plus people in Congress. How many can you name? I can name maybe 15, maybe 10. And who are those 10 or 15 who we know? Are they the best statesmen and stateswomen we have? Are they the best politicians in Congress? Hell no. They're the ones who are good at winning press conferences. Let's name all the people we can name. Let's see who are the most famous people in Congress. So you got AOC, you got Bernie Sanders, you got, maybe I can name more than 15. AOC, Bernie Sanders, help me out with some names. We got Jasmine Crockett. We got, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, who else we have? We have, what's my man from Kansas or Missouri? Josh Hawley, we know him. We got Rand Paul. Is he still in the government? Is he still in? I don't even know if he's in. Is Rand Paul in? Cory Booker, that's another one. So how many is that? That's 6. I'm just thinking of people whose names we know. Name some Congress people who we know. Ted Cruz, another one, 7. Jim Jordan, good, that's 8. Let's keep going. Chuck Schumer, 9. Nancy Pelosi, 10. Patty Kennedy, I never heard of. I never heard of Patty Kennedy. I never heard of Ron White. Can't get it. Letitia James. No, Letitia James is she's not in Congress. She's a what's she, a prosecutor? Lauren Boebert, that's 11. Hakeem Jeffries, that's 12. Marsha Blackburn, I've kind of heard of her. All right, so we'll give you that. That's 13. Who else? Famous Congress people. We got 13. Marjorie Taylor Greene, 14. Adam Fuller-Schiff, okay, I'll give you that one. 15. John Kennedy. Did somebody named John Kennedy? We got 15. Crockett already said. Ron Johnson, I've never heard of Ron Johnson. So I'm not doing Ron Johnson. I've never heard of him. And I don't watch politics that much. So I'm thinking of people whose names I would know. Mark Warner, I never heard of. Tim Kaine, I have heard of, but I'm not going to call him that. Okay, we'll give you Tim Kaine. That's 16. Mitch McConnell, okay, 17. Tim Scott, 18. Pocahontas is Pelosi. We already said her. That's 18. Mike Johnson. Okay, Mike Johnson. He's a speaker, right? 19. Ilhan Omar. That's 20. Okay, so we're up to 20. Who else? Famous Congress people. Marjorie Taylor Greene, we got. So we got 20. We got more than 20. Anybody else? Tim Burchett, I never heard of. I can't give you him. Tim Scott, we got. Who else? We got 20. Oh, no, we got Presley. Is Presley the one with the bald head? Is that her? That's the bald-headed black chick. Is that Presley? I think that'd be 21 if I'm right about that. Presley. Maxine Waters, 22. Can't forget about her. Elizabeth Warren, 23. Nancy Pelosi, we said already. John Lewis. Who's John Lewis? I thought John Lewis was a black dude who died a long time ago. So I don't know who John Lewis is. Can't give you that. Blue hair Roman. Who's that? I got 23 so far. Rick Scott, 24. Grammy, I appreciate that. Who else? Rick Scott, we got 24. Al Green made himself famous because what did he do? He was shouting at Trump during it. Okay, so we'll give you him. That's 25. Who else we got? We got 25. Anybody else? So we named 25 Congress people. Now it's 535 or so people in Congress. We named 25 between all of us put together. It's 100 people on TikTok, and let's say 100 plus people here. We named 25 people. Eric Swalwell, 26. Nancy Mace, 27. Okay, she's good, 27. What's the woman's name or the man who is a woman? What's that name? I know that person. What's that person's name? The man who's a woman. So we had 27. Massey, I heard of Massey, so I'll give you that. That's 28. Is Warnock? Is he in Congress? Okay, that's 29. We're at 29. Tommy Tuberville, 30. Okay, we got 30. Anybody else? Tom Tillis, I've heard that name. I don't know if I would consider. Oh, we'll give you Tom. We'll give you Tom Tillis. We got 31. Al Green, somebody said. Ossoff, I don't know who that is. Ossoff, can't give you that one. Duckworth, can't give you that one. Don't know who that is. What about Klobuchar? Is she in Congress? Somebody said Al Green already. Chip Roy, I don't know that. I don't know Chip Roy. So I'm thinking of people whose names I would know when you say their names. I don't know that name. Lyndon B. Johnson. No, I'm talking about people in Congress right now today. Yes, Al Green we got. Yeah, I said Al Green. I gave us Al Green. That's 31. Al Green was the guy with the slick back hair who started yelling at Trump during the that joint address that he did. Joe Manchin, there we go, 32. That's another one. Susan Collins, I'll give you. That's 33. Anybody else? Who's Angus King? I don't know who that is. I think we got 33. Oswald is a senator out of Georgia, says Cindy. Well, see, this is the point. If you got to tell me who they are, then that means they don't count. I'm talking about people whose names we know, like off the top of our heads. And I'm using myself as the reference point. So I don't know Oswald. Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg, is he in Congress? I'm assuming. Let's just assume you're right. That's 34. Lindsey Graham, 35. Those three, the franchise, the three people you mentioned, I don't know who they are. So we still at 35. Ackerman's not in Congress, I don't think. You're talking about Bill Ackerman, who's on X, always posting those long ass posts. I don't think he's a Congress person. Pete moved to Michigan. He's not in. Okay, so we'll stick at 34. Tim Walsh. You talking about the Minnesota guy? He's a governor. He doesn't count. Swalwell, I think we got. So we're at about 35. I think we're stuck on 35 right now. I'm saying all that to say this. All right, so all of you all of us put together, Marco Rubio, he was in Congress, I think. I think now he's in the Trump admin, but we'll give you that. That's 36. McConnell, somebody said already. Thune, I think I've seen the name, but I wouldn't count that person. So we got 36 people. There are 535 members of Congress. Somebody said Miss McConnell. We got Miss McConnell. There are 535 members of Congress, I think, the last time I checked. The number can fluctuate. All of us put together, 100 plus people, we named 35 people. Now, why does that matter? That matters because these are the people. Yeah, Rubio left Congress to join Secretary of State. Yeah, he's in the Trump admin now. So let's just say 35. 500 people, we don't even know who they are. And they have elected positions. And they're making decisions about your life, our laws. Bozeman, I don't know who that is, Linda. I don't know Bozeman. So I'm just thinking of names that the average person off the street, if you pay a little bit of attention to the news, you would know. Macy from Hawaii, I don't know that. Is Macy from Hawaii the one who was on all those hearing committees and was trying to grill people? I remember that person from, I don't remember the exact name of who that person was, but I wasn't a fan of that. I think she was from Hawaii, but I wasn't a fan. But I don't know that. I wouldn't know them name recognition from what you said, so I won't kick them. Schiff, somebody said Schiff. Adam Schiff. That name was mentioned. So 35. Here's the point. The ones who we know, Tlaib, Rashida Tlaib. That one, nobody mentioned her. So we got to put her in there. Somebody said Schumer. We got Cruz. So 36 or 37 we can't even name 40 people. Between 100 of us put together, we can't name 40 people. All right. And I don't know if that makes us wrong or it actually illustrates the point, though, which is this. These are the people who win the press conferences. All those people are always in front of microphones. That's how we know who they are. Not because they're good at what they do. Not because we know their track records, because they're in front of microphones. Elon Musk is not a press conference kind of guy. He's not the guy who wins the press conference. He's not some people talk about Elon, they talk about the signal and the noise. So the signal is about what you actually do and what you're really about. The noise is about all the stuff you do around it to draw attention to yourself. A lot of politicians are all about noise. There's no signal. What's the last legislation that AOC got passed? We don't fucking know. Nobody knows. What is she actually doing every day? We don't know. Now, she's on tour with Bernie Sanders doing a whole bunch of nothing. But that's how you become a famous politician. It's all about the signal, not the signal, but the noise. Elon Musk is all about the signal and no noise. Elon Musk is he's not really much of a talker. I mean, you saw him on X last week going off on Trump, then he deleted everything. And can you remember a famous press conference with Elon Musk other than the one when he was doing that and everybody was saying, well, he's doing the salute and Elon's not that kind of guy, which is why he didn't last too long in politics because he realized, this is not even about being good. This is not even about performance. I'm good at performance. I shine when I'm in a place where performance matters. I'm speaking as if I'm Elon. So I'm in this place where performance doesn't matter. It's all about winning the press conference. So now the stuff that I'm doing performance-wise is being completely ignored because these people who are good at winning the press conference are making me look bad, even though I'm fucking volunteering to help y'all. What the hell am I doing here? Let me go back to running my businesses. Byron Donalds. Okay, that's a good one. So we'll say 38. Fetterman is another one. We're about 39. I don't think we even got to 40, folks. Presley, I did mention. Yeah, Presley, I said. Is Presley the one with the bald head? What's that woman's name with the bald head? She's part of the squad. So it was Rashida Tlaib. It was Ilhan Omar, AOC, and the fourth one was the bald-headed black chick. Like, is that Presley? I'm thinking Presley is that. That's the person I was asking about before. But whoever she is, she gets on there. I have heard that name. And I see her on social media every now and then, but I don't know if I'm connecting the name to the person. Yes, okay. So she's the bald-headed black chick. Yes, so we got her. So we didn't even name 40 people, folks. There's 100 of us. We can't name 40 Congress people. It's 500 of them. So I think we all need to take a class on civics. But anyway, the government is all about the optics. So when they shut down Job Corps, what do a whole bunch of people on the political left say? Oh, you're not helping the underserved people. Mofo, do you look at the stats? What are you talking about? We're not helping them. What they need to do, here's what politicians should do. This is never going to happen, but this is what they should do. They should go to private sector people like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or even the people whose names we don't know and say, here's a problem we're trying to solve. Here's what we tried. This didn't work. Do you have a better way of solving this problem? Can you help us? And if so, we'll take the same money that we were trying to do it on our own with, and we'll give you, look, we're trying to save money, Mr. Entrepreneur. So how about we give you half of this? Instead of giving you $155K per student for a Job Corps like replacement, Jeff Bezos, how about we give you, what's half 155K? Let's just say 75. We'll give you $75,000 per student. That's your payment. The money goes in your pocket. Now you take that money and whatever money you want, and you create the program that will solve this problem of helping these underprivileged kids have a vocation when they get out of the training with you and the Amazon-based Job Corps. Somebody tell me, would that work? Yes or no? Give me a yes or a no. Would that be a good idea? Do you think Jeff Bezos could make that work? Think he could figure it out? I think Elon Musk could figure that out. Do you think, who's another entrepreneur? And again, it doesn't have to be a famous person. I'm just giving you these names because they're famous. But there are entrepreneurs out there who are not worldwide famous who can solve this problem. If the government's going to give me $75K per student, I can solve any problem. If it's something that's in my wheelhouse of knowledge, of course it will work. So why don't they do this? Why don't they do this? Why don't they just go to Elon or Jeff Bezos or some entrepreneur who has 200,000 followers on Instagram, who's good at what they do? Why don't they just go to them and say, we'll take half the money. Mind you, we're paying $155K a student now for 50,000 people. We'll give you the 50,000 people. We'll give you half of that money so we can save some money, put it back in our piggy bank. You solve the problem, and you're solving the problem with $75K per student. So let's do the math here. Let's say they come to me and say, Dre, we want you to teach communication skills to these Job Corps students. So you're just going to be the communications guy. Everybody else, we're going to have an electronics guy. Let's say we got 5 people. All right, so what do they teach in Job Corps? Let's find out the core skills they teach in Job Corps, and I'm going to solve this problem right now. What are the core skills that get taught in Job Corps if you just had to put them in bullet point format? And we're going to see if we can narrow this down to like the top 5 or top 10. And we're going to put the numbers on it and everything. I'm going to solve the government's problem right now for free. So workplace relationships and ethics. So this is about punctuality, dressing properly, following procedures. So maybe I could take that job. Interpersonal skills, teamwork, friendliness, respect for diversity. I could do that one too. Personal growth and development. I could do that one too. Independent living. Somebody else will do that one. Career and personal planning. We'll let somebody else do that one. Communications. I can do that one. Multicultural awareness. Somebody else can do that. Information management. That's like research and evaluating. Somebody else can do that. So let's look how many we have. 8 pillars. Okay, so let's do the math here. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pillars for a Job Corps. Okay. Now they're spending $155K per student. And if the government's all about solving this problem, so let's say $155,000 per student, calculator, divided by 8 pillars. Okay. So that means they're spending $19,000 per year to solve each one of these 8 problems. Now follow my math here. Let's just say they didn't cut the funding. They just used this money and put it somewhere else because they still want to solve the problem, right? So let's just say they kept the money where it was. So we're going to spend $155K a year to solve this problem for 50,000 low-income people. All right, so it's 50,000 people. We're going to solve this problem, and these are 8 sectors in which we need to solve the problem. So all they got to do is go out into the open market and say, hey, United States of America, entrepreneurs, people who want to solve problems, we have 8 issues we need to solve for Job Corps. We tried to do it ourselves, and we failed. We're looking for 8 people who can solve this problem. We need workplace relationships, interpersonal skills, personal development. I would go, if I had to pick from these 8, I would do the personal development. I would apply for personal development, independent living, career and personal planning, communications, multicultural awareness. They should probably get rid of that one. They could cut this down to 7. I don't even like that one. And information management. The government says we need 8 people. We're going to pay 8 people to solve this problem for our 50,000 students each. Now we have 50,000 students. We're going to take that $155K we've been spending a year on these students. We're going to divide it up amongst the 8 of you. And we're going to pay you $19,000 per student to teach this to the kids for the next, how long is Job Corps? Let's say it's 2 years. $19K per student, and we got 50,000 of them, so you can do this online. That means we're going to take that $19K times 50,000 students. That's 968 million. Is this number right? $750,000. Let me make sure my math is right here. $155,000 per year per student. Now, each student is $155K, yes. And we're dividing that by 8. That's $19,000 per sector on students, and I'm going to serve 50,000 of them. Let's say I didn't serve 50,000. Let's say they divided it up. They say we're going to have one person in each segment of the country, one person on the West Coast, one person in the Midwest, one person in the South, one person on the East Coast. So let's say we divided that by 4. All right, so let's not be greedy. So let's say, Dre, we only want you to do 15,000 kids. So what's that? About 12,500 kids. So 19,000, you're going to get 12,000. So we're going to divide that by 4. 4,000 per student, because I'm only taking the South region because I'm in South Florida. Multiply that by the 50,000 students. And Dre, we're going to pay you. Why does this number seem not right? 50,000. That's $4,843 times 50,000 students. Why am I getting this big number that doesn't make sense? $4,800 times 50 students. $240,000. Something must have been wrong with my decimals there. So, Dre, we're going to pay you $240,000 to teach these kids per year for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. If you win the bid, we're going to have everybody apply and try to get in this. I'm going to sell myself as a personal development coach. I'm going to serve a quarter of the Job Corps students down in the South. I do it all virtually, and I'm getting paid $240,000 a year. And all I'm going to do is put them right into one of my systems and one of my programs, teach them personal development. Are you telling me the government couldn't get this done very effectively if they opened it up to the open market? Of course they would. This would be amazing. So you have one person who knows information management really well, another person on multicultural awareness, another person on communications, another one on career and personal planning, another one on independent living, another one on personal growth, another one on interpersonal skills, another one on workplace relationships and ethics. You telling me the private sector could not solve this problem? This is what Job Corps is allegedly doing and failing for the last 60 years. You're telling me the government couldn't put out a call to the open market and say, who can solve this problem better than us? We'll take the same money we've been putting into the students and give it to you to solve the problem. If their real goal, listen closely, if their real goal was helping these people, that's exactly what they would do. They would have did this in the 70s. They started the program in 1964. In the 70s, they would have realized, okay, we ain't got this shit right. Let's give it to someone who can actually do it. They would have been solved this problem if the goal of the government was actually solving problems. That's not the goal. Their goal is politics and optics. Now, what are they doing? What they do is say, we have these programs to help people like you out. And because we're doing this to help you, you need to vote for us. That's the game in politics. The game is not solving your fucking problems. If the government's job was to solve your problems, or they thought their job was to solve your problems, they would take a lot of things they're trying to solve on their own, allegedly. They would send it to someone who could solve it better, and they would make you less dependent or less needy of the government. Less dependent on and less needy of the government because they solved your problem. So guess what? You don't need to go to the Democrats or to the Republicans to solve the problem anymore, because your problem has been solved by someone in the private sector that was turned on to you, or you were turned on to them by the government, because the government said, we want to solve your problem. Your problem is you come from a poor background, you're in the ghetto, in the projects, and you're broke, and you don't know what you're going to do with your life. Let me introduce you to Dre. He's going to show you the personal development side, and this person's going to do that, and that person's going to do this, and you're going to have all of this enrichment to help you go be a contributing member of society to where you can make $100,000 a year easily, annually, and we're the ones who introduce you to these great people who are going to solve your problem. We'll pay them to help you. Doesn't cost you any money out of your pocket. You go make $100,000 a year, and guess what? You don't need anymore now that we solved your problem. You don't need us, the Democrats. You don't need us, the Republicans. You can still have an opinion. You can still have something to say. Of course, you should still vote and exercise your civic duty and do all that stuff, but you don't need us. So guess what you become now? An independent voter. Wow. Wow. This is what is supposed to happen if the government was doing their actual job. We're at 79,000 likes, folks. Can we get to 80, please? We're almost there. Just tap the screen. If the government was actually doing their job, this is how it would look. Just like that. I just told you. And even though you should give me credit for being a genius, at the same time, you don't have to give me credit for being a genius, because I guarantee you I ain't the first person to present this idea in the public. The government knows that this is a way that it could go. Now, why do they not do it? That's the question. Who has an answer? Somebody put in the comments. Why is the government not doing this? Why don't they do this? Michelle said, why not make those courses mandatory for high school seniors? Well, it's a simple answer to that. Department of Education. That's why. That's why they don't do it. Angelica, good morning. I'm doing great. Why does the government not do this? Do you think I'm the first person to come up with this concept? How about we take the things that we're failing at as a government, privatize it or offer it to the private? We can have some say, but we basically find some private people who can do it better than us, more effectively than us, for less money than us. We'll give them the money that we're already spending on it. We'll give them the money. They're incentivized to do it. They help the people better than us. We help the people, which is allegedly what the government's supposed to be fucking doing. And now we solved all the problems. Why aren't they doing this? I'm waiting for somebody to answer the question. Why have they not done this? They could easily outsource the call for papers or call for grants. Anybody want to get this grant money to go solve this problem? They could easily just put this out. Donald Trump could easily put this on Truth Social today, and he have 1,000 people applying to be the person to solve the problem. Why don't they do this? Reason they don't do this is because there's a whole bunch of people whose very careers depend on sitting at a desk and pushing a button to look like they are doing it. And if you privatize it, then those same people working in the public sector will have to go get a fucking job and have to actually contribute to society for once in their lifetimes. That's why they don't do it. And the entire system, the machine, is designed around keeping these people employed and keeping them getting the paycheck, even though they're not doing shit to help the everyday citizen, even though they allegedly have a job that is ostensibly designed to have them help the everyday citizen. They're doing absolutely nothing, but they are not going to sit there and let you create an opportunity for them to be fired and replaced with someone who would actually be effective. So when you heard Donald Trump say, drain the fucking swamp, this is what he's talking about. And this is why the swamp doesn't get drained. Because again, alligator's not going to sit there and let you drain the swamp. And if you want to see an example of someone from the private world coming into the government and trying to drain the swamp, look at what they did to Elon Musk. Look what they did to him. This is what happens when you try to drain the swamp. The gators are not going to sit there and take it. All right. Any of you ever watch National Geographic? You see what gators do when you come into the water or you get too close? All right. That's what happens. Now imagine a whole pond full of those mofos. And you're coming in there by yourself talking about, I'm going to stop this. Yeah, okay. We'll see how that goes. All right, look what happened to the last guy who tried. All right, that's how it goes. So any of you, I'll reiterate something I've been telling you all for years. And those of you who have not been following me for years understand I've been saying this for years. Never, ever, ever put yourself in a position of depending on or looking to the government to solve your problems. I just explained to you for the last 90 minutes why that's a bad idea. They are not interested in solving your problems. The government is interested in looking like they're trying to solve your problems. That's called optics. They want to look like they're trying to solve your problems. Here's what you need to understand about entrepreneurs, people like myself and those of you who are entrepreneurs. Here's what we do. We must solve your problems. Otherwise, we don't make any money. If I don't solve your problem, then you're not going to pay me. Or if you pay me to solve a problem and then I don't solve it, you won't pay me again. That's how entrepreneurship works. You must perform. You must solve problems. And if you don't, you go out of business. In the bureaucratic world, you can fail to solve problems and get away with it. So those of you who are good at solving problems, I would suggest you figure out how to go to private sector where you can get true ROI based on the value that you bring to the marketplace. Those of you who are not good at solving problems and you're not really that good of a performer, I suggest you go get a job in corporate America or academia or the government where you can hide and nobody ever holds you accountable for the fact that you ain't shit. All right, that's what I suggest. This is the way it works, by the way. So, all that being said, let's get to the comments. I've been talking a lot here today. We got about 27 minutes to get through comments. Hopefully you all got some value out of that soliloquy that I did there. And let's see what we got going on over on, I don't see anything, Facebook, LinkedIn, what we got going on Instagram. I'm not sure I saw anything. So not really what I just gave you all is an advertisement for staying away from the government And also, those of you who actually have game, learn entrepreneurship, because and pretty soon everybody's going to have no choice but to be an entrepreneur, by the way. King Code said, every industry is a structure for competition. No, that's why we have antitrust laws. We need some regulation in some industries and sectors. Generally, you're correct. And yes, that's the reason why you break up monopolies. You had companies like Microsoft back in the day. These days, you can have companies like Google may be coming up on that soon. Apple may be facing it very soon. It depends on who's in charge in DC, though, because if they like them, then they won't do it. There's a reason why you saw Jeff Bezos at the presidential inauguration. You know why he was there? Because he don't want Donald Trump coming down on him. And that's why he was there. There's a reason why you saw Elon Musk hitch his wagon to Trump. One reason amongst many others. The reason why you saw Mark Zuckerberg at the inauguration with Donald Trump. Why? Because that's the guy in charge, Trump. If I'm cool with him, they won't start looking at my business and looking at whether or not I have too much power. Because if they start looking at you like that, they're going to come after you. That's what happens. The reason why the government came after Bill Gates and made him break up his monopoly of Microsoft is because the people in charge at that time didn't like Bill Gates. He didn't have a good relationship with them. He failed politically. That's the reason why he lost business-wise. Now, had he been friends with them, they never would have broke that shit up. That's the way it works. This is all politics, folks. This is how politics works. It's not about if you're right or wrong. It's not about if you're good or bad. It's not about if you're delivering or not delivering. This shit is all about relationships and optics. That's the whole game in politics. Carla said, and block everyone under you. Yeah, exactly. Because the more you block them, the better you get to keep your job. That's it. IT Burnout said the USPS is a private company. No, it's not. USPS is literally the government. YIG said private company can take advantage without oversight. Yes, that's one of the trade-offs, is that if you don't have oversight, then they can somehow create monopolies. That is one of the possible downsides of privatizing things. That's one of the arguments that the government makes. I say that with proper regulation, you can stop that from happening. And if you have true open competition from the start, then there's less chance of that happening. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but there's less chance of it happening. And I'd rather privatize, let's say something like Job Corps, or something like feeding the hungry or housing the homeless. I'd much rather make that a privatized issue than a public issue. Because if you privatize it, somebody's going to solve the problem. Why? Because private business owners are incentivized to solve problems, because when we solve problems, we make money. That's the way it works in a capitalistic society. So YIG said protection against greedy billionaires. I think that's the least of most people's problems. I mean, it sounds good because the media has made that an issue these days, YIG, but that's not really the problem most of us have, especially those of us who are on social media talking in the middle of the morning on a Friday in June. I don't think that's most of our problem. Mike Mays said the private sector only cares about money. They're not in the business of helping. Mike Mays, I strongly disagree with this. In the private sector, of which I'm a part, the only way I can make money is by helping somebody. If I don't help anybody, I make no money. That's the way it works. So that's a false binary, which you presented there, is that they only care about money. They don't care about helping. How does Amazon make money? They make money when you buy something. Now, why'd you buy it? Because you bought something that you believe is going to help you. That's the only way they can make $1. You cannot make $1 as an entrepreneur without helping somebody. It's impossible. AU Hunter said Doge is a perfect example. Yes, exactly. Again, that's why I said it like 5 times. Look what they did to Elon when he tried to come in and bring private sector ideas into the public sector. The gators and the crocodiles in that swamp said, hell no. And they turned the media against him. Like heck said, Elon turned on the light and the cockroaches are scurrying. Well, not really. No, they weren't cockroaches. They were more like rats. They attacked when the light got turned on. They didn't run away. They attacked. They attacked Elon. They didn't run from him. John said, who told you this? Told me what? Carla said, because it's a grift. They don't care about the program. They got rich jobs. Corporates get $16K. Yeah, exactly. Job Corps gets $16K. Yeah, the graduates. Mike says something like USPS are services and they aren't supposed to make money. I get it, Mike. I get it. I'll just use them as an example. I'm not saying specifically them, but even them. If you privatize that and even told them, okay, you can't make money, but we'll do this for you. We'll do this favor for you over here if you take care of this over here. I believe, let's say if Amazon took over what is now the USPS, they can make the USPS more efficient and more effective than it currently is, as long as they had an incentive to do so. That's what I'm saying. And the government can make money. They can find money anywhere. All they got to do is give Amazon some tax breaks. That's it. Hey, Jeff, we'll give you some tax breaks. All we need you to do is solve this mail problem. They would do it. Capri said, why were his actual reports saving constantly revised by his team? Well, I don't know what you're referring to here, but just because your reports got revised by your team doesn't mean that you're wrong. I mean, he had very good people on his team. One of the reasons Elon is who he is because he has very good people working for him. It's not just about him being the one genius by himself. It's a trap that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into and never actually realize that they're in it. So you should be having your stuff edited by your team. That means you got a really good team that you can trust enough to take care of things so you don't have to do it yourself, which is why Elon was able to work 90 days in the government. His businesses kept running. So I'm going through where you all were mentioning the names. I'm seeing where I'm at in the comments. By the way, I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Get my book, The Third Day. That's this red book you see right here. Get a free copy of it at that link right there, thirddaybook.com. Or just go to workonyourgame.live. You'll see links to all of my books where you can get a bunch of them for free. We give a lot of books out for free. Carla said, how would they get money from that program? How would they become millionaires? Who are you talking about? The business people? B said, being wealthy does not make you a leader or educator. No, I never said that it did. Why are you making that comment? B said, that makes some sense. Incentivize the private industry happens already, actually. Yes, I know it happens. The government does give grants. The thing is, the government is so slow and so inefficient that they are still trying to do a bunch of shit they shouldn't be doing. The government should not be handling things like, there's a big argument about healthcare. I'm not even going to go into that. Let's just say other things. Feeding people, such as SNAP and these things for people to get like food stamps. That should be privatized. With government has some say, but they should have private organizations handling it because the private organizations would do it better than the government does it. The government has been trying for 60 years to do these things and failing for 60 years. So if you've been failing for 60 years to do something and you got 350 million people, we are a country of innovators, of inventors, of entrepreneurs. How could you possibly not have a better solution to this problem amongst all these 350 million people? That makes no sense. And you got so many people who want to come here because they believe they have an idea that would help. Why would you not do it? Kimberly says, underprivileged people shouldn't have kids if they can't teach them or give them opportunity. Not necessarily. First of all, it depends on how you define underprivileged. When my parents had my sister and me, they didn't really have money like that. My mom worked at Denny's when I was a kid. I remember my mom working at Denny's. My dad worked like as a security guard at times. They didn't really have money. I was not born into a trust fund or a college fund or any of that shit. So I don't know if you would consider that underprivileged. But the best setup for a child often can be when you don't have a lot, because if you don't have a lot, but you have good parents. If you have good parents who have their heads on their shoulders, even if they don't have a lot of money, and you don't have a lot, then you become what we call a sturdy individual. So it's not like you had enough handouts that you could relax and do nothing. But at the same time, you had good guidance at home, so you weren't some idiot. That's actually a very good setup. Now, if your parents happen to have something, but at the same time they have their heads on, so they're not allowing you to just be some rich kid that doesn't learn the value of a dollar and the value of hard work. Like if you're a billionaire and you have kids, your kids should still go get jobs as soon as they're eligible to get a job. And they should understand that you still have to work to earn something in this life. Just because we got money doesn't mean you got money. It's like Shaquille O'Neal says, he says to his kids, he says, y'all not rich, I'm rich. All right, y'all just live here. So Carlos said they don't care about solving problems. It's a grift. Well, the government in general, yes. Now, if you work in the government, you can't kind of change it yourself. I mean, again, you've seen the people who tried to change it and what happened. Michelle, good morning to you. Shell for real estate said if the goal was to help. Yes, if that was the actual goal. That's not the actual goal. The goal, again, I told you, goal of the government is politics and optics. That's all they care about. Let's see. Michelle said, why not make these courses mandatory for high school seniors? So, yeah, that's one of the things that I answered, Michelle, is the Department of Education was a federalized government program. So as soon as it becomes federalized and governmental, you get a whole bunch of the nonsense. That's when the nonsense gets entered into the conversation. So that's why that doesn't happen. And also, Michelle, the other thing about that is that if you made these mandatory for high school seniors, you need people in the schools who are qualified to teach them. And the people who create these kind of programs are entrepreneurs. They don't want to work under the government's umbrella because the government is going to try too hard to regulate what they can and cannot do. That's the clash. So if the government said we want a personal development program for all high school students, and they said, Dre, we want you to be in charge of it, I would say I'm interested. First of all, tell me how I'm going to make money from this because I'm an entrepreneur. I make money based on the value that I bring to the table. And secondly, I don't want anybody telling me what I can and can't do because I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have a fucking boss and nobody's going to tell me what I can't do, especially when I'm the one who has all the knowledge in this space. So if the government is okay with that, then we can work. And if you're not okay with that, y'all go find somebody else. The government would probably say, Dre, we can't do that. We got to have some oversight over you. And I'll say, fuck you. You go find somebody else. They would go find somebody worse. And now the kids are not being served. That's the problem. The most qualified people to solve a lot of the problems that the government is failing to solve are entrepreneurs who don't want somebody telling them the problem. And that's the reason why it doesn't work. That's the reason why they're not solving problems the way they want to solve problems. Carlos said, how would they become millionaires? Who are you talking about? Sophie said, it's easier to just hand out money. Well, the government does that pretty well. I mean, they're handing money to themselves. It's what they're doing, but they're failing at it. And at least it's becoming more exposed slowly. But Heck said the government does whatever it needs to get votes to keep power. Yes, people who work there, that's exactly what it is. Mr. Ohio J says no money in the solution to a problem. That's also true. And also because there's no political gain in the solution to a problem. Because if you solve the problem, then you can't campaign on the problem anymore because the problem's gone. So if we solve the problem of people only making $7.25 an hour because somebody who can teach people how to step their skills up goes and teaches all the people making minimum wage how to earn $15 an hour. Now Bernie Sanders can't go around talking about the oligarchy because there's not enough people making $7 an hour to fill up the arenas for him to bitch about it. Now, he can still kind of bitch about it because the oligarchs may still exist, but the oligarchs are the ones who solve these fucking problems, and nobody wants to talk about that. Oligarchs become oligarchs because they solved a whole bunch of problems. You don't become a billionaire by stacking paychecks. So Renee said they would have to admit failure. Too many feelings, powerful. Yeah, they would have to admit failure, but the government doesn't actually have a problem admitting failure in certain cases. They admitted failure with this. They're the ones who admitted the Job Corps failed. All right, that's it. They admitted the Job Corps failed. They told on themselves, which is rare. That's why I said we got to give the government credit. At least they pointed out their own bullshit for once. Now they still got to solve the problem. The problem is still there. So what are they going to do? Here's what is probably going to happen. They're going to come up with another version of a failed strategy, and it's going to fail again. What they had to do is privatize it and let the best and the brightest solve the problem. Newsflash to everybody. The best and the brightest people in America don't work for the government. And I think most of you probably understand that. And the best and the brightest problem solvers are usually working for themselves, or they're about to be working for themselves because they realize, why am I working for anybody when I can solve this problem better than everybody? All I got to do is figure out the business side of things, which is teachable and learnable. And nobody can learn my talent, but learning the structure, learning systems and structure is teachable and learnable. Why am I solving problems for somebody else when I can solve these on my own and help everybody out? O-Dog said, all the problems government needs to solve involve wasted money. When the government fails to solve a problem, they throw more money at the problem. Where's the incentive to solve the problem? Well, there is none. That's exactly the point. Because politicians need problems to win elections. If there are no problems, you can't win an election. See, if you didn't have the problem of immigration, Donald Trump would not have become president the first time or the second time. But because immigration is a problem, he was able to become president because it's a problem and people know it's a problem. Now, if that problem completely went away, doesn't mean nobody else can win an election. What it means is they got to find something else to campaign about. Now, ideally, you solve all the problems. That's impossible because as long as you have imperfect people running around the world, like us humans, we're all imperfect. You'll never solve all the problems because imperfect people will create imperfections. You can't have a perfect society unless you have perfect people, and there's no such thing as a perfect person. There will always be problems to solve, but we shouldn't be still working on the same problem 60 years later that we were trying to solve in 1964. That's the actual issue. We should be working on new problems. The problem we're dealing with now should be different than the problem we had 10, 20, 50 years ago. We're at 90,000 likes TikTok. Can we get to 95, please? So let's see. D Wood said, nice context. Was that? I think he meant context. Appreciate it. Ashley said because if they outsource, the people lose dependency on the government, which means job loss. Yes, and it also means politicians lose because they can't go and win another election because what they going to get you excited about? To win an election, you got to get people mad about something. You don't win an election by getting people happy. You win an election by getting people mad. Donald Trump got people mad about immigration. That's why he won twice. Both times he got people mad about immigration. Joe Biden won because he got people mad about Donald Trump. That's it. And in 2028, whoever runs got to come up with something new because you can't complain about Trump because Trump's going to be gone anyway. So you got to come up with a new issue. And that's the reason that the Democrats are in trouble right now because they need somebody who can come up with an issue. We haven't seen that person yet. O-Dog said, the problem with government is the people it's supposed to serve. The worst thing that happened was universal voting, unproductive idiots. Keep this gravy train going. Universal voting. What do you mean by that, O-Dog? Give me some more context. You mean not everybody should have the right to vote? I've heard people throw that idea out there, but I'm interested in what you mean. Wayne said, capitalism is motivated by profit and not the public interest. Yes, but again, Wayne, this is the same thing I said earlier. Name an entrepreneur who makes money by not serving people. It's impossible. You can't make money without serving people. So every person who makes money via capitalism is ostensibly, I'm talking at the basic level, you make your money by solving problems for people and they're willing to pay money to solve the problem. So if I open a grocery store, and I remember I was at a conference a few years ago, I think his name is John McKay or John Mackey. He's the guy who started Whole Foods. And it was actually a debate. It was a debate about capitalism versus, I don't know what the guy was arguing, but the other guy he sucked. It wasn't a good debate. But John Mackey was arguing in favor of capitalism. It was at this event called, what is that event called? It was the one Trump spoke at in 2016. It was called, what's the name of that event? It's in Vegas, or at least it was in Vegas that year. And I was at it. I can't even remember the event. I'll think of the name of it in a second. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, John Mackey was talking in favor of capitalism. Capitalism forces you to solve problems for people because if you're not solving a person's problem, they're not going to keep giving you money, period. That's the way business works. So being motivated by profit is not a bad thing. I'm motivated by profit. That doesn't make me greedy or bad, or you can call me greedy. Greedy is not necessarily bad. Again, greed is good. Gordon Gekko. All right. It depends on what you're greedy for and why you're greedy. I'm motivated by profit. So to profit, what do I have to do? Okay, here's a bunch of people with a problem. All right, how do I get the money that's in their pockets to go in my pocket? Well, I got to figure out what their problems are, figure out how they see the problem. I got to show them that I understand the problem, and I got to show them that I can solve the problem. If I'm able to do those things, guess what they'll do? They will give me money for my solution to their problem. And if I keep solving their problem, guess what they'll keep doing? They'll keep giving me money. That is the way business works. And the economy doesn't work unless we have this consistent exchanges of money going on. And the only time someone exchanges money is when you solve a problem. When you go to the gas station, your problem is you don't have gas, so you're willing to spend money to put gas in the tank. And as long as I keep doing that and you keep providing the gas, then I'll keep doing the exchange. That's how we get a healthy economy. When nobody's spending any money, meaning nobody's solving any problems, then the economy slows down. We get a recession or a depression. So capitalism being about profit is not a negative thing. And I don't understand where some people get this idea that saying capitalism is all about profit is like you're saying it as if it's a pejorative. That's a good thing. It's supposed to be about profit. So Strategic Brand said deep political divisions. Yes, of course. Michelle said exactly that unions also fight and privatization. What do you mean? Give me a little bit more context on that. What do you mean? Andrew said Elon is richer than them, though. I'm sure he can take them. Where you been the last 6 months? Did you see him try? Didn't work. Kimberly said the government is not responsible for helping you get your life together. They are not when it's us talking, but if you listen to the government, they present themselves as if they are. And most politicians, no politician is going to come out and say that they're not, because again, that's how they win votes, by keeping you dependent. And there's a lot of citizens who are not in this room right now who actually do believe that the government is responsible. So that's the issue. So Michelle said the government just throws money at problems. Yes, generally. Angelica said, I love your honesty. Thank you. Me too. Hunter said, amen. They don't want private companies to run anything. Government is like a magician, sleight of hand. Generally, yes. Carla says, can the government fix the bridges and some potholes and leave everything else alone? Yeah, the government can do that. They can fix bridges and potholes. They can even privatize that, as a matter of fact. They can privatize that too. The thing is, all of these things would shrink the government because there'd be less need for the people working there, because the thing that they are allegedly doing, they wouldn't need anymore because it's been privatized. That's how the government was first initially designed to be. Read Walter Isaacson's book on Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin is one of the people who helped create America as it is today. And he never actually was elected officially to an office, but he was one of the greatest statesmen of all time. He was involved in getting us the money to fight what became the Revolutionary War. He was part of the Continental Congresses at the beginning. I don't know if they were calling it back then, but to basically frame what the country was going to look like. He was a huge part of all of that. And he knew all the people. He knew George Washington. He knew John Adams. He knew all of those people who were involved in the formulation of the country. Ben Franklin was very much involved, and he was very good at coming up with compromise. The reason the government became the government is because he helped negotiate a lot of the compromises about how the government works, what it can do, what it can't do, what it should do, what it shouldn't do. Y'all should read that book. So it's Walter Isaacson is the author, and the book is about Ben Franklin. The book is very long, but it's worth a read. So all of you can understand what the government was supposed to look like as opposed to what it looks like. It was supposed to be a lot different than what it is now. You just said government's the biggest monopoly. Oh, yes, they are. That's a fact. Fat Dude Cook said, beware of the man who talks money. No, you should beware of the man who won't talk money is what you should be aware of. You got it backwards. Renee said, local government retiree. One person and system does work while 5 employees play. Disgusting. There you go. So somebody who worked in a local government is telling you. So if that's at the local level, as Renee said here, imagine what's happening at the federal level. And they're all getting paid. That's the part that's crazy. Daniel Lee, appreciate you. Good to see you here. Strategic Brand said people will try to compare Trump University to privatizing education. Well, you can. I mean, that is what he did. But there's a bunch of other people with teaching programs and coaching programs that are actually very good and helping people make money. So not all of them work. Let's say Trump University didn't work. Let's just say that. But what about the thousands that do work? And the government ain't doing it. I don't want government mandated education. This is why I'm not a fan of the Department of Education. I don't want the government in charge of the education of me or my kids. No way. B said, no attacks on Elon. Democracy hit Elon. Things work differently inside democracy versus private sector. Generally, you're correct. But the government, inside the government, once you're already in, that's not a democracy. What that is a bureaucracy. You're using the wrong word. The government, democracy is how Trump won the election. That's how Elon got into the government. Bureaucracy is what happens once you get in and you realize that things don't work the way they seem to work from the outside looking in. Bureaucracy is what got in Elon's way, not democracy. Elon didn't have to get a vote to do things. What Elon ran into was what we call red tape. And you only run into red tape when you're in a bureaucracy. When I'm in business, there's no red tape. If you sent me an email or send my assistant an email and say, Dre, we want you to speak at our conference. We're sorry for the late notice, but it's next Friday in West Palm Beach. We'll pay you your full fee. Can you come speak at my conference? If that was the government, you probably couldn't get it done because it would take 6 weeks to get an answer from somebody. But if you reach out to me, there's no red tape. My assistant will reply to you and tell you exactly what it will take, exactly what will work. And by the end of the day today, you have already sent me my money and I would have told you I'm speaking and you could announce to your crowd that I'll be your keynote speaker. That's when you have no bureaucracy, no red tape. You get things done quickly. Government has red tape. Things happen slowly. So even the things Elon wanted to do, he tried to come in there and do things fast. He ran into bureaucracy. That's why he couldn't do anything. Shell said, my first job was at Denny's. Shout out to Denny's. Rahek said, good parents are all you need. There is help out there. That's right. If you have good parents, you could be broke. You are still headed for a good space if you have good parents. You don't have to have a whole bunch of money. You don't have to have any money. WK said, our kids have to learn to take advantage of whatever opportunities are available. That's right. And that's the parents' job to teach that. Shell for real estate. She said, so they create problems to solve. In some ways, yes. Right now, the government has so many problems, they don't have to create anything. They can just look around. You don't have to figure it out now. You just look around. It's like sometimes when I do these live streams, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about. Some days I got to figure out what to talk about because I don't see anything juicy enough as a topic. But then other days, there are so many things to talk about. I just got to pick one. So sometimes you have that problem. The government doesn't have that problem. They got a bunch of it. Carla said, people say that again. Please say that again for people in the back. The best and brightest are not in the government. No, they're not. The best and brightest ideas, people, and problem solvers in the United States of America do not work in the government. And if they do, they get out quick because they realize, I can't get anything done here. Which is why it was very surprising when Trump got into the government because he already was running the business. Why do this? Carla, I appreciate the goats. So Tammy said, "You're an intelligent guy, interesting to listen to. Thank you." You're welcome. Thank you, Tammy. Mike said, "Roads are privatized by government by hiring private companies to do the work." All right, so there we go. So that problem is solved. B said, "It may be a good idea to also speak of the disadvantages of capitalism. The U.S. experienced this before." Yes, there are trade-offs. Beej, I would use the term trade-offs. Everything has a trade-off for everyone to understand this. There are no perfect solutions in life. Everything has a trade-off. The question in life is not what's the perfect scenario. This, when it comes to people, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to careers, when it comes to where you live, when it comes to how you live, when it comes to the food you eat, everything has a trade-off. In other words, there is no perfect scenario. It's the third law of economics. First law of economics is supply and demand. Second law of economics is marginal diminished returns. And the third law of economics is that there are no free lunches, which means anything that you do, there's a cost. You choose capitalism, there's a cost. You choose socialism, there's a cost. You want the government running everything, there's a cost. You want the government doing nothing and let people run things, there's a cost. Everything has a cost. So one of the trade-offs of capitalism is that people are going to prioritize a dollar. And when you prioritize a dollar, sometimes people will do unscrupulous things and what some will consider immoral things for the dollar. Can that happen, and does that happen? Answers are yes and yes. At the same time, I will live with those trade-offs in order to have the government out of my business and more private citizens who have much better systems than the government solving most of the problems that we consider societal issues. Housing is an issue for a lot of people. Food is an issue for a lot of people. Having a career option that can actually allow you to be self-sufficient for yourself and your family is a societal issue. If I want to solve these societal issues, if I was in the government or I was campaigning for a position, I would say what we need to do is privatize these, because I know 30 entrepreneurs who could solve these problems better than any of these bums working in Washington, D.C. If I said that during my campaign, nobody would donate money to my campaign. I wouldn't win an election, because somebody with more power than me would make a phone call and say, don't give that mofo any money. That would be the end of my political career. So this is the problem with our government. Our government is so big and so bloated that as soon as you start talking about things that go against the grain of the way the government normally works, they make a phone call and that's it for you. Again, look at Elon Musk. Look at Vivek Ramaswamy. Look at anybody who tried. All right, this is what they do to you. And this is why Trump is such a surprise, because Trump was doing the same thing, but it actually worked. Because Trump is so influential, he has the charisma that he was able to push it through. But look at how much resistance he's been getting for 10 years. And anyone else who's ever tried it, they got the same resistance, just not on the same level, because they're just not as big a personality as Trump. But others have tried. Does y'all think this is a new idea? This is not new. They've been trying. It just doesn't work. Lahek said, Ben Franklin said, a democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. Cosmic Plura said, red tape is there to make sure nobody rush is slow, deliberate, and intentional, and ineffective. Don't forget about that part. Cosmically Plura said, government shouldn't work fast. That's how mistakes have room to happen. No, that's false. Cosmically Plura, that is false. That sounds good if you're talking to some elementary school kids. Things need to happen fast for one basic reason, is that human beings expire. We only got so much time on this planet. If you move slowly, you get less life to live. You move fast, you get to live more life. I'll give you an analogy. Let's say you have 20 years left to live. Let's just say that you knew that, right? And you have all these goals that you want to achieve over the next 20 years. And you plan out how much time each one's going to take, and you could achieve all of these goals within the next 20 years. So you'll achieve everything before you pass away. But if you're able to add speed to it and do those things faster, what if you achieved all those goals and did all those things in 10 years? Now you achieved all your 20-year goals in 10 years, but you still have 10 more years to live. So now what do you get in those last 10 years? You get to create new goals and live more life in the next 10 years. So when you move faster in life, you actually get to live more life and experience more things. When you move slow, you get to live less life. So let's say you had 20 years worth of goals, but you take twice as much time to get them done. By the time your 20 years are up and you die, you only achieved 10 years worth of goals. So half of the goals you had, you never achieved. That's what happens when you move slow. When you move fast, you get to live more life. When you move slow, you live less life. The government moves very slow. So it's stretching things out, and that actually makes things worse. We're at 99,000 likes, folks. Can we get to 100K? So this concept of moving fast is somehow bad is incorrect. And in the entrepreneurial world, I'm going to assume cosmically poor, you're not an entrepreneur, because in an entrepreneurial space, slow is death. Slowness is death to your business. In my world, everything has to happen fast. If we're moving slow, we're in trouble. Someone asked me my thoughts on the conflict with the I countries. I have none. I don't pay that much attention to that area of the world. So I probably won't be talking about that one. Cosmic Report said Trump ran because it increased his clout because he could do golf courses. Trump had golf courses way before he was in government. Cosmic Report, you got to come with something better than that, please. Irina Galaviz said, yes, good morning. Mayan Contractor says, you're in the 1% who speaks facts without bias, emotions, or feelings. Good job. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Sensei said, looking for dysfunction and ways look to government entities. Also true. Cosmic Report said, that is assuming there'll be no issues in the time that you have in that more life optimistic. Cosmic Report, really? Are you really just going to try to split hairs on anything that I say? If that's the best you got, then you can't participate in this conversation. You got to come with something higher level than that. This is not 8th grade. Goyo Gott said, I had a dream to become a millionaire by 40 and I accomplished it. Congratulations. B said, unmanaged capitalism turns into pay to play and lobbying, and those without have no voice. Well, in certain ways, yes, that's one thing that can happen. And when you say what does managed capitalism mean? We have managed capitalism now. The government has rules. We got laws. We got the SEC. We hit 100K. Thank you, everybody, for helping me hit 100K. Michelle, thank you for the flowers, the roses. Goyo says, some of these comments that middle class people say are wild. And it ain't even so much it's the mindset more than is anything. It's not even about what station people are in life. It's the mindset that a lot of people have. A lot of you have just been taught a lot of bullshit by your parents and by your school teachers. And I apologize on their behalf. So my job, one of my jobs, I got a bunch of them. One of my jobs is helping some of you unlearn some of the nonsense that y'all have been taught for 30, 40, or 50 years of your life. The challenge is the older you are, the harder it is to undo the thoughts that have been implanted in your mind. Appreciate you, Mr. Ohio J. Bruce said, I love your content and viewpoints. Very straightforward and commonsensical. Thank you. And all that said, folks, we usually do these lives from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I went a little bit over here today, so we will wrap this one up here. If you like this one, come back on Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I will tell you some ideas, some topics that we may come up with. One thing guaranteed to happen, probably next week, is Project 2025. Is it actually happening? We're going to do a review on Project 2025. Is it actually occurring? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? There's a lot to be said about that. We're going to talk about this Epstein list. Is it ever going to come out? And if so, why? And if not, why not? We're going to talk about that. Some Democratic governors have sued who'd they sue? They sued the government? I think they sued the government over using active duty people. And yeah, we might talk about that. I got to get some more context on it. We might talk about that. Elon Musk talked about a new political party for the 80% of people in the middle, which I think most of us would probably be in favor of. There was another political party and increase the competition in politics. We might talk about that. That's on the docket. We're going to talk about the TATE guy and this case they have in the UK. I might not talk about it yet, but that will be a topic at some point. Hard to talk about that because I can't say the guy's name. I literally can't say his name. TikTok will take my content down if I say his name, and I've already had that happen. But y'all know who I'm talking about. So anyway, I will see you all Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, for the next live. If you like this live, go to this link, workonyourgame.live. That link is in my profile on TikTok. I got it pinned over there on Instagram. It is in the comments if you're on YouTube, because this replay will be on YouTube. And they always put these comments as default to private on Rumble Studio. So I just put the comment there on YouTube and Rumble Studio. Those of you watching, workonyourgame.live. And if you want to get a copy of my book, The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs, this book is free. Get this at thirddaybook.com. Thirddaybook.com. The book's free. Just cover the shipping. That link is right there. It's also in my the link in my profile on TikTok, which is workonyourgame.live. Carla, thank you for the happy Father's Day wish. So happy Father's Day to all the dads out there over the weekend. Everybody enjoy your weekend. We're in the middle of June, so some of you are on vacation. Enjoy the heat. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy your weekends. I will see you all Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. We are out of here. Thank you, everybody, for helping me hit 100K. Thank you to my moderators, as usual. I appreciate that, and we are out of here. Everybody have a great Friday.